A warm welcome back to the Information Security Stack together with me, Daniel Gustafsson, and Kim Hindart.
Hubba!
Today, Kim, we have something really nice to talk about. Class action lawsuits.
Finally!
They're
Woohoo!
here. Awesome. It's actually happening. It's currently it's one case, but it's driven in two places, one in the UK and one in the Netherlands. And it is regarding Oracle and Salesforce. And the class action lawsuits are absolutely enormous. Not per person in itself. It's like £500 or €500 per person, which in itself is a nice little bonus to get if you're just doing nothing and you get £500. But in the grand total of things, because this is regarding so many people, we're talking about a fine roughly 10 billion euros in the UK and an additional potential 15 billion euros in the Netherlands. Now that's a boatload of cash.
Finally, because I've been saying all the time, it's not the administrative sanction fees that you need to worry about from the DPAs.
No.
They're the small part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the class action lawsuits.
And what is the reason for this class action lawsuit?
Because they made tracking cookies. So we will talk about this. Don't record people's behavior. As soon as you do the least bit of recording of user behavior in your app, on the digital world, in any sense, you will end up with personal data faster than you can say, whoops.
Yeah.
So, for the reason, don't track user behaviors without their consent, without their informed consent.
Yes.
Why do the people track this anyway?
Well, I mean, for the first and foremost, it's because you can make cash out of it. It's very financially positive if you have that as a business model. Meaning, I track your behavior. I can now target. Commercials. I can target products. I can target sales. I can target you as the person because I now know what you like, what you don't like, where you surf, to which sites, so on. X, Y, Z.
Let's just realize this is the new gold.
It is.
This is the new oil.
Yes.
It's not banks that's the major corporations today.
No.
It's not oil companies that's the major corporations today.
No.
The 10 biggest companies today, it's
in
tech,
the world.
tech.
Yes.
Just tech. And, well, the reason is GDPR doesn't prohibit you from tracking user behavior.
Nope.
Not at all.
No.
It just makes it regulated, so you can't do it without the user's informed consent. And you can't abuse that right.
No.
Without the user having the opportunity to say, no, I don't want you to sell my personal data for a profit without my knowing it.
No.
So, for profit sales of human personal data, well, we're back to slavery.
Yes, without the hard labor.
It's human trafficking, but still human integrities we are violating because, so that's a bad practice. We have a major case in Sweden as well with an insurance company that did this, that they actually reported themselves.
Yes, they did.
Oracle and Salesforce claimed they did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So
in this case with the whole Salesforce and that bit is that they have not self-policed.
No.
This is now a claim against them. It's a lawsuit against them.
And if you imagine that for doing something violating your personal integrity, I mean 6,000 Swedish krona or 600 euro.
Yeah.
Well, the transgression doesn't have to be that huge, actually, to warrant that.
No.
And if you do it to billions of people, guess what? You end up with billions of fines as well. So
because here we come back to the fact that we've been talking about in earlier sessions is if you use free services on internet, nothing is free. You're paying with something, probably your integrity. So, but still, it's a free service. And then you kind of know you're probably getting screwed. You should know, at least, you're probably getting screwed. But in this case, I'm paying for a service. I'm a paying customer. I'm a customer. I'm paying you for the service that you provide. And you say, here's my perfect service. It's awesome. And I purchase it, and we have an agreement in place. I hopefully have read the contract in detail, so I know exactly what I'm buying. And then you decide to just make profit out of my identity just because you feel you want to make another profit. So the profit gain from me purchasing your service wasn't enough. Now you take my identity and you sell it again and again and again for a profit. That's a business model. And if that's the case, not only are you fooling and you're using your users, essentially. That's what you're doing. And you're not being upfront and honest about it. It's illegal. It's, to your point, it's like human trafficking. You're selling another person to a third party.
This is exactly why GDPR wanted to open for this opportunity. So yes. So hopefully we will see a lot more class action lawsuits. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people they just don't understand this because they haven't read the agreements properly.
No.
They haven't seen to the agreements to understand that the tech giants really, really want to gather analytics on user behaviors.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm pretty happy that we're too small to benefit from that because we haven't these huge AI engines.
No.
So we can just survive it's no use to us anyway, so we don't do it.
No.
But you shouldn't do it at all.
No.
And the sad part with this is if you just do it openly and make a revenue cut, if you earn a lot of money from this, if you push that back to the user, you would have millions and millions of volunteers who would happily provide all their user behavior for a few bucks.
Right.
So
if you're open about it and you're telling me that this is the way we do business, and if we do that and me allowing you to do it, I get something back for it.
Yes, you would have millions. So you don't even need to waste anything like this. You don't need to do it secretly.
But what is the reason and why this is? I mean, to be honest, what we're seeing right now is a wave of companies getting caught.
Yes.
That's all there is to it. Because it's been pretty much common knowledge for a long time that this has been going on.
And the sad part is, it's just because they haven't adapted to GDPR yet.
No.
They've just ignored GDPR. It's been a bit of visual thinking. If I close my eyes and wish really hard, then GDPR perhaps goes away. No, it won't.
No.
So,
all right. So if we're going to give ourselves some credit here, and let's do that. A couple of years ago, when we ran a Swedish podcast called GDR Podcast in Sweden, it was only in Swedish, unfortunately. But at the time, this was 2016, 2017, two and a half years before the entry of GDPR. You were a big spokesperson of these types of lawsuits. And you said, now, finally, we have a rule in place which opened up the potential. Now, we didn't think it would happen every week, but at least now you have the potential for these types of lawsuits. And most people that A, heard that, or B, listened to us, or C, said, well, that won't happen. And in Sweden and in Europe, we have a history of not using these types of class action lawsuits. It's just not a thing. In the US, it is a thing. It's a massive thing. It's ginormous fines, which has been going on forever. It's almost stupid in the other way because the fines are so heavy, no one can get paid, but let's not get into detail. But 4 years ago, you said this will start to happen, and it took about 4 years because here we are, late 2020, and we're seeing.
But finally, it's happening.
It is.
And sanction fees will be really nothing in comparison to the class action lawsuits, depending on transgression you do and how many users it hurts.
Yeah.
So we have cases, actually established cases within Europe right now, of a single happening for a single user, where it's been determined that sensitive information leaking for a single user was worth around 30,000 euros.
Yep.
Imagine if your entire database of users, when we talk millions of records,
yeah,
that's 30,000 per individual, because each individual hurt have been hurt just as much.
Yes.
So when you are breaching or giving away or selling away millions of records, now you're in trouble.
Yeah. Because all the people in those records have an equal claim.
Yes.
If they have been equally hurt or potentially equally hurt.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden now you have a difficulty. And people say, yeah, sure. But this is just Oracle and Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we have a lot of European companies, a huge amount of companies using Salesforce.
Yes. And what happens to them?
Go and read your contract really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Go and read your contract, because you will be held responsible for any class action lawsuits against your company just by using Salesforce. So even if it's Salesforce that's abusing it, you might be held responsible towards the data sub. And this is a tricky part, because you might not get any help from Salesforce in that end.
No, you're on the risk of being on your own.
Depending on the contract.
Yeah.
So every company using Oracle Salesforce, go and look at your contracts really, really well. And this goes for all the big tech companies that earn money and profit on making analytics out of user behavior. If you contract Google, if you contract Microsoft, if you contract Oracle, if you contract Facebook, if you contract any of the big US hyperscalers pretty much, make sure that the contracts list what are they intend to gather from analytics point of view.
Yeah.
And how are they using it? Because let's understand, if we are gathering human behavior, you will end up with personal data. Immediately end up with personal data, no doubt about it. So if it comes to something user behavior at all, make sure you have really, really solid on what does the contract say? How are they allowed to use this? And how can you control it? Otherwise, you might end up being the one sued in a class action lawsuit.
You run the risk of it, yes.
And you won't get any help from Salesforce, rest assured.
And, even though if you haven't done anything wrong or whatever, you have to fight off the claim. And that in itself is expensive.
Yeah.
It takes time and it costs a lot of money. And once again, keep in mind the actual definition of what a personal information is regarding to GDPR. It's anything that can relate to a living human being, one soul. So anything essentially could be. And yeah, that's tricky, and we can go into nitty-gritty details and we can make it completely stupid. But at the same time, it doesn't take that much in order to become something that I can then identify you.
And especially the case in point with Salesforce and Oracle.
Yeah.
They kept tracking cookies. So not only was it what I did on their site, they kept tracking my entire internet.
Yes. So everything,
behavior.
Everything.
So everything I do. So now we end up in sensitive data immediately.
Yeah.
I go to subscription pages, I go to medical pages, I go to dating sites that might be gay dating sites. All of a sudden we are right in the middle of sensitive.
Yeah.
Data.
Sexual orientation, any union-related info, whatever it might be.
Organizational info, files, philosophical beliefs.
Yes.
You can determine that pretty fast just by looking at people's browsing history.
Yes.
Today.
Yes.
Rest assured you.
I mean, that's all you need to look at.
Yeah.
What do you actually browse to? What do you like? What you don't like? What are your personal preferences for anything in life? You're
my browser knows my interest very, very well.
Oh, for sure.
So,
and they might be both sensitive, and they might be a little bit, might not be something you want to be public about, but they know it. And if that's the case, once again, coming back to the fact that I have an agreement with a company which then takes my identity and uses that for personal gain, monetary gain, that is an issue. And that is...
and like the privacy watchdogs that have actually filed this class action lawsuit, I do hope this becomes a lot more common.
I hope so as well.
Because then it will be a lot rarer that they start abusing this.
One would hope, anyway.
Yes. So,
but once again, coming back to these types of cases is essentially what GDPR was made. What the reason why it exists. This is why, and unfortunately, you and I we talked about this, during lunch today. Essentially, that this is just going to keep coming up and popping up. This is not the first, and this is not the last case we see in these types of regards. They're just going to be more and more and more, because it is a behavior within tech companies today. Unfortunately, a majority of them has a history where it wasn't a problem. No one cared, essentially. But now it is a problem. People care. And if you don't change that behavior, you will be caught. And here we are.
And the objections you see from the big tech companies that's crying are rivers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly the same was the banking said that.
Yeah.
Exactly the same oil companies said about polluting.
Yes.
Boo-hoo-hoo, we can't be held responsible for polluting.
Well, yes, you can, because you polluted.
You're the one making huge profits of this.
Yes.
So, yeah, sure you can.
Yes, you can. It's absolutely correct.
And guess what? They became regulated.
Yes. And we're going to say this. We're going to see the same pattern here.
Yes.
For sure.
And they should be regulated.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I mean, essentially, since everything today is internet-based.
Yeah. And before you start claiming that I'm totally socialist, no, I think that you should have free competition as much as possible.
Yes.
But some things should be regulated.
Yeah.
And yeah, you should be held accountable for not violating people's integrity.
Yeah. And if I claim I do one thing and then I do something completely opposite, then I'm lying.
Yeah.
And if that lie turns into a crime, then, guess what? You should be fined for it.
Yeah.
That's all there's to it.
So we can all agree that even though there would be a great market for it, slavery is not something we want to do.
No, not in any way, shape, or form. And yes, you can claim that is a very harsh comparison. But think about it. Just think about it.
It's people's integrity. It's people's digital identity.
Yes.
That you're trading away.
Yeah.
Without them knowing.
Yeah, for monetary gain. Guess what?
Guess what?
It's pretty much the same thing.
But just to understand, it takes very, very little of what you're doing and what you're gathering from your user behavior before it starts to become sensitive as well. Like I said, tracking cookies, but imagine insurance company that sells insurances. In Sweden, we have discounts for insurances if you're a member of a union. All of a sudden, you register union membership the same way.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now you're right into sensitive data.
Yeah.
Literally named sensitive data in GDPR. They tell you a union membership is considered sensitive data.
Yeah. So it's so easy to get there, and it's
faster. You have special insurance if you're pregnant. All of a sudden, you're right into medical conditions.
Yes.
So I mean,
so it's just the small step into Chapter 9 of GDPR is very easy.
So if you're not careful, you will end up there faster than you can say.
Yeah. And when we get there, all of a sudden, when it's sensitive data, all of a sudden, it's going to be considered a major breach a lot quicker as well. And then the fines are heavier as well.
And not just the fines. The lawsuits are going to cost you a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, so once again, now this is the first big one we see, at least in Europe. And we are pretty certain this is not the last one. There will be more of these types of class action lawsuits.
Yeah. And it's the lawsuits that will hurt the most.
And if for no other reasons, there are lawyers out there who see a monetary profit for their own
the
sake
lawyers
to start
can all
drive
of a
these
sudden,
cases.
Yeah. So, but to all you European ambulance chasers, go right ahead, chase the ambulances. This is something we should chase away. This is a behavior we don't want to. So go ahead, sue away. More of this. Good for you. Go sue them.
Go lawsuits.
Yeah.
But you know what? But it is such a different behavior. We're not used to this. We're not used to this.
No.
And I don't think the users in itself, us the users, mean us, the public, really understands our own rights in this as well.
Yeah. But as soon as someone can tell you can get a few thousand euros without doing any effort, just sign here.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Do you feel hurt? Yes, I do. Sign here.
And just understand that the biggest of these companies that do this type of transgressions, well, this is not companies that you sympathize with and say, oh, poor you.
No.
Oracle and Salesforce, I don't know your relation to them, but if they can pay me 500 euro without me doing something, yeah, I will take the 500 euro, please.
The only thing I don't like about these class action lawsuits, to your point, I can sit on my couch and just make money.
Yeah.
By making myself a victim.
Yeah.
And we have a victim culture in this world, which I'm not a really huge fan of to begin with. So unfortunately, that it could foster more of that. But it should in the cases when there is when actually someone has gotten hurt, I'm all in favor for it.
And I can say, Oracle and Salesforce, sorry mates, I will take 500 euro from you any day of the
for this. Yeah, if this is true, yeah,
I would take the hand me the money.
Yeah.
So I mean, so this is the tricky part. No, you might end up in trouble. But what I warn, a warning to all companies out there using Salesforce.
Yes,
you might be held accountable for this.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of telcos in Sweden are fans of using Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, go read the contract. I'm just saying, read the contract.
Look into the details.
One extra way, because
see what is actually true for you. It might differ, so we're not gonna make a broad brush for everyone here, but we just.
But I say it's well worth looking into your contract with them
for sure. So this is going to happen, and we will follow this case very intensely because it's very interesting. And once again, as we mentioned before, we think it's going to be more of these types of claims in the future.
Yeah, and rest assured, we might end up not following this case anymore because tomorrow there will be 5 new ones.
Right.
So just to be clear.
There will probably be someone else, but yeah, I think it's going to be a trend. We will continue to watch these cases as they move along, and we'll keep you updated with our point of view. And if you want to participate, ask questions, or you want to be involved in this podcast, feel free to contact us at citynetwork.eu/podcast, where you can answer. Well, you can answer questions yourself if you want to, but you can ask primarily questions, or you can ask if you want to participate. So please do that. Until next time, take care.
Hubba.